Welcome back to Revealing the Hidden, where we take a deeper look into Jewish living. So we've been exploring prayer, tefillah, plugging into the mainframe, as we said, connecting to God, roping Him into all of our life, the idea of surrender that we spoke about yesterday, the idea of surrendering all of the things in this world through prayer and saying, no, God, I'm turning to you, I'm leaning into you, and knowing that you're the one that's going to take care of me, and empowering your tefillah that way. I want to look at something entirely different today. I want to show you that the Siddur itself has been created in a way that you couldn't even have imagined its sophistication, its brilliance, its beauty, and it's going to be something that you're going to want to hold on to more tightly than you've ever done before. The structure of tefillah was given to us by the Nevi'im and the Anshe Knesset Hagdola and the Chachamim that were there. The Siddur was delivered to Klal Yisrael at the end of the time of Nevuah, and the Vilna Gaon has beautiful insight. The Vilna Gaon points out that Chazal say that they had to destroy the Yetzer Hara of Avodah Zarah. It was too hard for the Jewish people. Idolatry, idol worship, the intense, I guess there were, it's very hard to relate to today, but there was some intense spiritual drive that was pulling at them, and they couldn't. And they felt like the answer or their connection to it could come through Avodah Zarah, through idol worship. It was terrible. It was ripping the Jewish people apart. And so Chazal davened to get rid of it, and Hashem did so. But we know that Hashem, Zel Umas Zeh, creates the world, this against that. And so the Vilna Gaon says, what is the parallel to the power of Avodah Zarah? Is Nevuah. The intense spiritual, mystical bonding with God. And it left the world. And so as that was happening, Chazal are like, we have to give Klal Yisrael a way to be able to still have this intense interaction with God, this bond, this dveikus, this closeness. It can't just come from the natural well springs of prayer that come from our heart on an everyday basis. There are times that it will, but we have to guide them. And so they put the Siddur together. So Rav Shimon Schwab, in his introduction to Rav Schwab on prayer, which I highly, highly, highly recommend to anyone who wants to take a few minutes to read it, he shows that the way, the structure, the format of the Siddur was built by the Nevi'im was built as the Beis HaMikdash. They actually created a prayer experience that is the structure of the temple, and your engagement with God is through His home, through the Beis HaMikdash. He's not the only one who says this, by the way. I'm going to start with a more simple version of this, as Rav Shimshon Pinkus also talks about it. Rav Shimshon Pinkus talks about how there's four major parts of prayer. You have brachos and korbanos, and then you have psuki to zimra, and then you have birkos kriya shma and shma, and then you have Shmona Esrei. It says those four parts are Keneged, Har HaBayit, the Azara, the Heichal, and the Kodesh Kedoshim. Each of them a more inner sanctum of the temple. And to borrow from a more Kabbalistic concept that he uses, which we're only going to just reference for a second, those four sections are going to be parallel to the four worlds in heaven. And you can actually see this written out. It's fascinating in a lot of siddurs, especially in Nosach Sfard siddurs. You could see that the four parts of the temple the four parts of prayer are the Olam HaAsiyah, the world of action, Olam HaYetzira, the world of formation, Olam HaBriya, the world of creation, and then Shmona Esrei is the Olam HaAtzilus, which is the world of complete closeness to God. This is a Kabbalistic concept that maybe I'll unpack a little bit more another time. But those four parts of the temple are supposed to be connected or parallel to those four worlds. But let's use Rav Shimon Schwab's analysis so that you could see it clearly. And it's much more sophisticated and particular than just the idea that you have these four sections. Here we go. So first, I want you to close your eyes if you want to. You don't have to if it's too heebie-jeebie. But I want you to just picture in your mind, the first place that you get to when you get to the temple was called the Ezras Nashim. This was a place before sunrise that people would go and they'd pray and they'd say Tehillim and they'd talk to God, and they would learn Torah, and that was you couldn't get further than that before sunrise. Then there were 15 steps that you would walk up that were parallel to the 15 brachos of the morning, the Birkos HaShachar, and Osein La'av Koach, the Sali Kol Sarkis, all those. There are 15 of them. You're walking up the 15 steps that get to what's called the Ezras Yisrael. The Ezras Yisrael had these beautiful gates of Nicanor, and basically it was the point that would cut off the Jewish people from the rest of the world. Only the Jews can enter into that section. So you have the tefillah of Le'olam Yehi Adam, which says, "Ashreinu matov chalkenu mana'im goralenu." How wondrous is our chilek? How special is our unique place in the world, and so it basically demarcates the Jewish people from the rest of the world, and the gates of Nicanor, and this idea of the Ezras Yisrael, that you have now entered into this place of avodah. Then there were 3 steps upwards that the Kohanim would take. And this is the place where the korbanos would be given. Which korbanos? This was the korbanos of the korban tamid on the mizbeach hanachoshes, on the copper altar that was used for all the regular sacrifices. And so you see after Le'olam Yehi Adam in davening, so you have this whole section of korbanos that we're saying. It's like mamish, like right there. It fits beautifully. Right, so if you're following me, we're going further into the temple right now. And when you're davening, you're actually taking these steps. You are walking the Beis HaMikdash. And it's beautiful because in the regular Beis HaMikdash that existed, you couldn't go this far if you weren't a Kohen. But you can. Because the inner world of the Jew is a world where you have your own Kodesh Kedoshim. And that's where you're going, through the Siddur. Okay, so we'll get there. Anyways, So the 3 steps were brought you up to the place of the korbanos. Rav Schwab says the 3 steps are Keneged Birkos HaTorah, the blessings of the Torah, because there are 3 blessings of the Torah. There are 3 sections we say afterwards. Keneged Torah, like Tanakh, and then Mishnah and Talmud. So there's this recurring theme of 3, and the psukim in the Torah is also Yivarechecha, which is 3 brachas as well, the bracha for the Kohanim. So you have this theme of 3. Next, so then there would be a new section that would be more elevated. So you're already in the place that only the Kohanim can go, and Korbanos, but this new section was going to be a section that was higher. And that was going to lead you to the place where you have the more, I guess it feels like the more elevated section of the temple. And this more elevated section of the temple would be where you have the menorah and the shulchan, all of these things. So you have 13 steps. There's actually 12 steps plus the 4, which is 13. And that's where you say the tefillah of Rabbi Yishmael Omer. So basically, before you even get to Baruch She'amar, you've already taken this journey. We had the Ezras Nashim, and then you had the 15 steps up, and then you had the Ezras Yisrael from Le'olam Yehi Adam, and then you have the 3 steps up from Birkas HaTorah into the Kohanim section, and you do the Korbanos, and now you have these 13 steps up into the deeper section of the Heichal, of the temple, where you're about to enter where the menorah is and the shulchan. But before that, so before you would get to the menorah and the shulchan, there's this amazing section of the temple that had these golden chains that would hang from the ceiling, and the Pirchei Kehuna, the young Kohanim, says the Mishnayos, would climb up to the top of these chains and would look, and at the top they had the crown of Mashiach and the crown of the Kohen Gadol, almost like this Geula, this incredibly redemptive experience that would be there before you walk in. And so if you look at Psukei Zimra, so the tefillos of Psukei Zimra are written out as chains. What do I mean by that? So a chain starts a link and ends a link, and starts the link of the new link starts before the beginning of the next link, right? The end of one goes to the beginning of the next, and that's how you hook them. And so when you have the Hallelujahs, so one tefillah starts with right, at the end of Ashrei, you end with Hallelujah, and then you have Hallelujah for the next Tehillim, and then you have another Hallelujah to Hallelujah, and then Hallelujah to Hallelujah. It's almost like the links of a chain. Yehichvod, if you pay attention, also is very chain-like. Ashrei through the psukim of the Aleph Beis. Right? They're all of these linked. They're not arbitrary. They're all linked from one to the next. So it's like these chains that you're using to climb up. As the Pirchei Kehuna happens to be by the 5 Hallelujahs that we say, they're the last 5 of Tehillim, and the Gemara in Brachos describes that they're parallel to the 5 parts of the soul. So you have the nefesh, you have the nefesh, the ruach, and the neshama, which are the bottom 3, and then you have the chaya and the yechida. And these 5 parts of the soul are connected, are parallel to the 5 halalukas that you're saying during this Pesukei Zimra, and you're climbing up one rung at a time all the way to the top of this experience of what we described of Mashiach, right? If you sing his crown in Aaron HaKohen. And what do you get to over there? You get to Az Yashir, which is, the point of revelation of God coming in and saving the Jewish people. It fits beautifully. Then you get to what's called Birkos Kriyas Shema, the blessings and the Shema. And now you're at the place that we were saying we wanted to get to, the inner sanctum of the Kodesh, where you have the Shulchan, and you have the menorah and the Mizbeach HaKetoras. The table with the showbreads is going to be parallel to the first blessing of the Birkos Kriyas Shema. Why? Because that one is about God's mastery over the physical world. Ma'arabu ma'asach Hashem, how wondrous are your creations, kulam b'chachma. So asisa, all of them you made with wisdom, and you thank Hashem for making the Yotzer HaMe'oros, they're creating the lights of the sun and the moon, right? Which guide the path of the physical world, and then you have the next bracha of Ava Rabbah or Ava Solam, depending on your minhag, which is parallel to the menorah. Why? So you have the showbreads. Again, the showbreads was the mastery of the physical world. God feeds the world. We're taking from that and thanking God, and that's the showbreads. As Hashem, we see lechem, bread, the one thing that it's sustenance that everyone needs. Right? We're giving it back to you. We're showing you that we recognize that it's from you. And then by Ava Rabbah or Ava Solam, so it's all about the Torah. It's about the same bina lahavin lahaskel, put it in our heart to know you, to understand you. Hashem chooses the Jewish people with love. He gave us the Torah, and that's the menorah. The menorah represents the light of the world, which is the Torah. True vision, being able to see God. Ultimately, then you get to the Shema. The Shema is connected, is parallel to the Mizbeach HaKetoras, the incense altar. The incense altar is when you give smell to God. Smell is associated with the soul. God put the soul into the body through the nostrils, and that's smell. Right, the nose is where you breathe in life, and neshama and neshima are very connected. Neshima is breath, neshama is soul. So you have Shema, which is a tefillah where you're supposed to keep in mind that you're willing to die for God. It's part of the kavanah that you accept God's yoke to the extent that you love Him with all your heart and all your soul. That you're even willing to die for Him, and you're giving Him your everything, even your spirit. And it's the most pleasing and incredible section of the temple in so many ways. And so the Shema, which is one of these centerpieces of davening, which is a complete and utter bond through God, through our source of life, is going to be the Ketoras. Finally, you get to the next place, which is called the Devir. The Devir is this hallway right in front of the Kodesh Kedoshim that you have to walk through. And it's going to be like the entryway into the most mystical experience of standing before the Kruvim. And so the Devir has to be opened. It's a curtain there that you walk through. And so Gal Yisrael, which we have to, the last bracha of Kriyas Shema, which is talking about Hashem taking us out of Egypt, is supposed to be connected to Shemona Esrei. Chazal go at great lengths to explain its importance in Maseches Brachos that Gal Yisrael and Shemona Esrei need to be connected, and so the Devir, which is the entryway into the closeness with God, the entryway is the Geula. Is Hashem opening the curtain, so to speak, pulling back what's been covering the reality of the world, so you can actually see what's really happening, and that's what redemption is. And then from there, from seeing it, then you have this closeness with God, and that is walking into what we had described before as the Olam HaAtzilus, the world of Atzilus, this or the Kodesh Kedoshim, this place where the physical and the spiritual world kind of melt. There's no separation between the two. In the Kodesh Kedoshim, that the Aron Kodesh, you could measure from one side of the temple to the Aron, and from the other side of the temple to the Aron. And so it seemed like the Aron existed, but if you added the space from the right side and the left side, it was as if the Aron didn't exist. Right, so meaning, let's say the Aron was 2.5 amos, and the Kodesh Kedoshim was supposed to be 10 amos. So if you measured from one side to the Aron, you get 5 amos. If you measure from the other side to the Aron, you get 5 amos. That's 10 amos. It was like the Kodesh Kedoshim the Aron Kodesh wasn't even there. There was a blend. There's a heaven and earth kiss. There's no more separation between the two. It exists. It doesn't exist. It's a complete bond with God. During prayer, as we said, you're plugging into the mainframe. There's this idea that you're moving the world, that your words, you're tapping into godliness and being so close to Him that your words are part of the creation now. Every word that you're saying is creating a reality through your connection to God. And so this is the unbelievable description that Rav Schwab gives us, and that we also see from Rav Pinkus, and so many people talk about Chazal, that you're actually using the temple, the map of the temple, the experience of the temple, every single day when you daven. I know that this has been a much longer podcast than I usually do, and I'm happy to, if you want, send me a message. I'll do a follow-up and do more. But I just wanted to give us a sweet taste of the beauty of the Siddur, the power of the Siddur, and recognize that it's such an incredible gift that we can use as a vehicle to travel in our mind and in our heart and through our soul to a closeness to God that we couldn't even imagine happening in our life. All right. Have a great day. Have an answered tefillah day.